Welcome back to the Wanks FPL podcast. Happy holidays, everyone. We're coming to you before this short game week. Obviously, before New Year's is coming about, but we've got a quick turnaround, so wanted to get some content out for you guys, as well as just, talk to each other. That's half the reason we do this damn podcast. It's just to bounce some ideas back and forth, get even more entrenched in our own opinions, and then move forward. So that's the point. But how are you guys doing? How are the holidays treating you?
I mean, the holidays were fine, but it really hurt to log on here and put in a rank next to my name that was about 3 times further down than I was 2 weeks ago. So, I'm glad we have a little bit of the blind leading the blind here. We take each other's opinions and we all get reds. So nice.
Yeah, holidays were good for me too, but Sharp had a funny little offline comment the other day where he's like, "Guys, I need advice." I'm like, "Yes, listen to the two guys who are on track for the worst season ever."
So
We
bad.
clearly have the roadmap. I'm not selling the podcast well, but I promise we're good at this game.
I'm on the lowest rank I've had probably since like early last season, like very early on. So we're in dire straits. I think things are not good in Team Banana Land, but yeah, like you said, misery loves company. Glad we can all share a red this week. Love to have it. All right, well, without further ado, then let's just jump into our game weeks. I can start. We can go worst to first. Yikes, that is not pretty. Christmas colors with all these flags, but so the thought process going into the week here was I did start Timber. Obviously wasn't expecting him to miss out. I did think that Richards, there was a good chance he missed out, so Rodon was first sub on my bench, thinking, they're playing Sunderland, worst attack in the league. That should be a decent shout, and then gets injured mid-game. Excellent work. So the Timber missing out also means that Chow comes in off the bench. So I think actually I had Rodon and Chow on the bench and was starting Richards and Timber in case either of them played. So that's tough from the defensive side of things. Arsenal concede as well, just a cherry on top. Same with City, and O'Reilly gets a yellow. Bruno G continues to just, I fucking hate him, but it's also, they're playing Burnley this week. Can't really sell him. Foden, is the magic gone? That's the question, I think. Is the magic gone? Harry Wilson gets an assist. He looked really involved again. So I meant to transfer Wilson out like basically at the start of this game week immediately for Cunha. I had just enough money to do it. And then I was like, oh, well, I'll watch the games. And then I was like, oh, well, I'll watch the next day's games and just like consider it. And then, being in the holidays, kind of forgot to make that transfer. So he will be staying in the team, which is fine with me. But then Declan Rice brought him in. He gets an assist. I don't know if you all saw that, but it was a direct corner that ended up being an own goal. So I'm pretty sick there. Bowen, we will obviously have some conversations about that. Seems to be a bit of a divisive pick on the pod, but I'm okay owning him. It does suck, though, to transfer out Thiago, who returns. I was also considering transferring in DCL, who scores yet again. So that's always exciting. And then Holland Blank and Ekitike with a small return. So all that adds up to shit and an 11.3 million rank game week. So big old red arrow.
Yeah.
Big red arrow.
The Thiago thing was painful. I was talking you into Rodon all week too. I felt like you should feel really confident in that. That sucked.
I thought I really do think, obviously Leeds aren't very good defensively, but I really did feel like that's a fine play to make.
And it still might have been had he not gotten injured.
Right. I was going to say, the way they played in the second half was really solid. They just conceded that early goal.
I feel like if you own a player like that, if you can't start them against the worst attack in the league, then like what else are we doing? So I'm fine with the play, but
that's a fantastic segue. I don't think you meant to do it into why I made a decision on my team.
All right, let's do it. Throw it in there.
I mean, he's right there, front and center for us, baby. Barry. I brought him in as a cheap option a few weeks ago after he scored his first goal as like a flyer because there were no attackers doing anything at the time anyway. It's like, why not? And then someone on Twitter convinced me, and they said, well, if you brought him in, why if you can't start him against Burnley? And I was like, bet, for sure, I'll keep him in. And then he didn't even start for Everton, so that was sick.
What a week.
I know, it was terrible. Holland was disappointing. I mean, City was disappointing in total. The only fun thing is that Ruben in my defense got a bonus point somehow or something, so that was sick. he got an extra point compared to the rest of the defenders. Tarkowski continues to be one of my favorite transfers in. I was really happy about that. I also didn't expect Timber to be out, but I got Anderson subbed in, so that was overall a win. I just really wish I had kept Wilson in for Barry. And I don't think the magic's gone with Foden. Unfortunately, it's gonna. I think like Mac had mentioned before, like it's gonna go all around, and everyone's gonna be involved at various points because they just have so many options, and that's how he likes to play. However, Cherky is basically an as good or better option for 1.8 million less, and that's where I'm kicking myself right now.
I mean, I think you had to hop on the Foden hype train when it happened. Like he was doing monster numbers. My whole thing when we were bringing him in was like, I think he's a streaky player, and this is just when we need to be diligent about getting off that train or deciding whether we should before his price falls.
Yep. And it is worth noting, next three are Sunderland, Chelsea, and Brighton. And those are three pretty solid defenses. I mean, Brighton, you could argue, is middle of the road, but seems like we all have other fires to put out, but definitely as somebody who going into next week against Chelsea could be a cash cow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I would say one other thing, just as we get forward, we'll talk about on transfers because you mentioned DCL. I'm like, should I? I could do it. I have the money to go from Barry to DCL. And like I look at DCL's fixtures and I'm like, oh, scary. But then I look at his last 6 games and I'm like,
scores every week.
It doesn't fucking matter. So
yeah. I honestly think so. When I was looking through, like trying to decide on him or Bowen, like Leeds are not a bad attack. They're actually like from an underlying data perspective are a pretty solid attack. So you're betting on the player who has pens and is really hot. Like shit. I just, my worry with going there was that I had missed the boat on him being kind of hot and that his streak was going to finally end. But shit, I mean, it's kind of what I was thinking going into the week is I was like, shit, is he the Chris Wood of last year? You know, like the player who's like on not a very good team and continues to return. And you're just like, it's going to end, right? Like he's not going to keep this up. And then he just keeps it up. That's kind of the vibe I get.
Well, I mean, Forest were definitely better than Leeds last year overall as a team because Leeds are still putrid defensively.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like not from an attacking perspective. I actually think Leeds are I don't know this for sure because it'd be hard to compare the year-over-year data, but I do think from an attacking perspective, they're actually a little bit better.
I hear what you're saying. The only other sad thing, I'm shifting gears back, is Dubravka on my bench. You guys didn't have a debate because you had Raya, like why you were going to start him no matter what. But I was debating it, and I went the wrong way. My whole reasoning was that I thought Verbruggen would concede 1 to Arsenal because that's all they can ever score, and then he would get save points. I didn't take into consideration the yellow, and I did not think Burnley would ever clean sheet, so it really backfired.
I think it's hard to kick yourself on ever starting the keeper for the worst defense in the league. So I don't think you should beat yourself up on that one.
I think the occasional 11 from Dubravka is offset by the long scroll of 2s and 1s. So 1 return all season isn't a thing to kick yourself out.
To be fair though, knowing you, like you would have done it. So I understand why this is like the first time that you have missed out on a crazy points haul from a shitty player. So
well, yeah. And my reasoning kind of made sense. He just happened to clean sheet because fuck it.
Yeah. Yep. Trust the process. All right, Mac, walk us through it.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much different. I mean, we had the same team largely, just with some small divergences. I just think we're all idiots for getting rid of Thiago. If we did, I did for Ekatike, which is just a bummer against Wolves. But I mean, he still's got Leeds, Fulham, and then Burnley in the next 4. So I'm hoping that move just works out in the aggregate. 10-point Tark was 8-point Tarkowski, and that's like the only positive to report. Saka returned, I suppose, and then Rogers didn't return, but that was expected. I just got on him early before price rises. I mean, I think it was just kind of a boring week. Like the average was only 44 points, so even those people who did better than us probably only had Semenyo or something. You know, I don't think it was a hugely out there week for me. I think the bigger thing is like, how are we moving forward? That's probably where I want to spend the majority of my time today, because this team is just looking a little stale. I think this is a mid-meta team, and I'm looking to change it up.
For sure. I do just want to touch on, I mean, I think Thiago is as good a spot to start as any. Did we all sold him last week? Is that right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So just talking through this a little bit, obviously the player of the game here is Sade. He scores hat trick, looked great. And I think, I haven't watched like a Brentford super closely. I guess I have been watching some of their games, but it's been a lot of pretty boring games in the last few weeks. And like from a Thiago perspective, he's done absolutely nothing for the last 3, and he's the guy who I've been keeping my eye on, or the last 4 really. I think he's gotten less than, like he said, like 0.01 xG in 3 of the last 4 games. Has barely been a player visible. I think this is more of like him returning is more an effect of how good Sade was in this game, and that Thiago is just kind of the player in his area. And also just that Bournemouth continue to be like this high variability team of being able to just concede a shit ton of chances. So to your point from that perspective, like it was a good matchup on paper, but I do think going for somebody like an Ekatike with more upside, or going for somebody, obviously in my case with a Bowen, you could argue that one's not as good, but like definitely the Ekatike one I see as, I think that was a smart move on paper. Again, like trusting the process versus the outcome. Like you're going Ekatike on a better attack versus a worse team. And this just ended up being kind of a crazy one. But I do think this really put Sade on radar, or should.
I don't know if it's so much that I want to lean Brentford. I would say on the Ekatike thing, it was unfortunate of the timing, but
yeah,
it's still the right move for all the reasons you've already mentioned. So I don't feel like I'm not kicking myself for that. But I think what this said to me and what I texted you guys was that I think I'm now going to be like attacking Bournemouth. So like looking at who the attackers are that are playing them, because I think this is just a porous team, and we can go into the player they're going to be losing. He's the only one that has the XG in his name on there. With Semenyo gone, like I think they're going to be a really, really bad team that you want to target.
And I think the other thing about attacking them, I think it's a great point, is that we can attack them with assets we're sort of likely to own within the next couple of weeks, because in the next couple of weeks they play Chelsea, who some people might have, depending on how quickly that Semenyo deal gets done too. Like the transfer window opens January 1st and it's December 29th right now. So like if someone activates his window day 1, he could just be gone, right? Probably not for this game week, but certainly maybe against Arsenal in 20. Then they play Tottenham, who I hope you don't have their assets, but then Brighton, Liverpool. So like it is possible to actually attack Bournemouth with some of these assets, particularly like Arsenal guys in 2021. So I watched that game. I was really surprised by just how bad Bournemouth looked, because Senesi, we were talking about at the beginning of the season, was not only the DEFCON king, but also like up there for the first Data Boys pod when we were just looking at a table, because he was cleaning a lot. And now it doesn't seem like they have that defensive solidity anymore. They didn't start with Tavernier, or they did. Who did they sub on? They subbed on like Evan Nielsen. So it was kind of a weird lineup. I didn't expect that. I don't know if they're trying to figure out life without Semenyo already, but he played, he scored. But other than that, yeah, weird game.
Yeah, they started with Tavernier. They subbed Krupi off at half, and then a couple of injuries and some defensive transfers as well. True fart came right off. Yeah, I mean, you brought up Semenyo. Obviously, that hurts Bournemouth. You would think that would hurt Bournemouth from an attacking perspective. It does also potentially create like a void. Who's going to fill that gap at Bournemouth to be the good attacker? So that's an opportunity there. But to your point, I think when you lose potentially your best player, almost certainly your best player, that's just going to make it harder and harder for you to possess the ball more. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that goes. But it also brings up, it sounds pretty likely that he's going to be going to City. All fingers point to that direction. I would assume he's kind of going to take over the Doku spot just off the bat, at least while he's injured, and go into that spot. So we've talked a lot about Triple City. Obviously, I think we all already have it, or Mac, you're considering going to your third City player. So it may be something that's worth making a move to eventually. Obviously, City have some solid fixtures for a little while in the short term. We mentioned Sunderland, Chelsea, Brighton, but then United, Wolves, Tottenham. So it could be honestly a nice time to pick him up eventually. Maybe some guy that we're talking about in a couple weeks, but probably not somebody you want to jump on at the moment, just until we see how he slots into that lineup.
And I think the bigger question there is also, if he does go to City, which it seems likely, who gets dropped, right? You know, someone's going to have to make way if they choose to start him. In this last game against Forest, they played Foden on the left wing. So probably not dropping Foden, but that is the Doku spot. In the game before that, they also played Foden on the left wing. So is Foden going to have to go and play more in the midfield? Is Semenyo going to start immediately? There is this thing where Pep signings where they just like don't start for like a year, because he likes to give them time to, you know, get the tactics and stuff.
Right.
So, I mean, we could just never see this guy for the rest of the season too, or he could come on very occasionally for very specific type games. So definitely worried about moving to City assets just with some of this instability. I think if he had gone to United, it would have been very predictable. He would have gone on the left wing, supporting Cunha, supporting Buma when he comes back. Easy peasy, but no, I'm not so sure.
Yeah. The Pep Roulette will never really know, but looking at this lineup that they put out last week, I would think somebody who would drop out would either be a Bernardo Silva, a Reinders, or maybe like Silva goes into where Nico Gonzalez was playing and then Foden slots into the 10 spot. I'm not sure, but I do think that obviously if they're making this move, it seems like it's a direct Doku replacement, at least in the short term, as they try to make this gun for the title. So I'm pretty confident that he will play. I just don't think he's a priority transfer in the next couple when they don't have incredible fixtures. But by the time United rolls around in 22, it might be somebody worth considering.
Yeah, I think it's likely that Reinders gets dropped mostly because I think everybody else, like Cherok's been playing out of his mind. Foden's been pretty solid.
I mean, Reinders has scored. I think he scored in the past 2 weeks. Like he scored this week. I think he scored the week before as well. So, but yes, totally your point. I think there's a lot of hot players in that lineup, which is why I think honestly the most likely is Bernardo Silva. But who knows?
But he's their captain. I mean, he doesn't start every game, but he is their captain. So they're playing him in the big games like Real Madrid. I don't know.
Yeah. Could also just be that Semenyo doesn't play all of it. You know what I mean? He could just be subbed in, eased in, like you said.
Yeah, a minutes man. I don't know. Either way, I think the larger point, you're right, is just not a priority buy. You know, if you had him versus the Burnley game, good on you, because you probably should have had him versus Burnley, but now I don't think it's the right move, because if he stays at Bournemouth this week, he plays Chelsea. If he moves to City, we don't know about his rotation.
Yeah. Well, someone that we all have interest in, I think I can say confidently, is this United team. So obviously, actually, let's start here with this week, just because they have such good fixtures over the next 3. So Wolves, Leeds, Burnley, which is just a fantastic run. Somebody else has a really good run for the next few. Obviously, Newcastle with Burnley, Crystal Palace, Leeds, and Wolves. That's the one that I was thinking of. So both those teams play 3 of probably the worst teams in the league in the next few. I don't think this week showed that Cunha is a must, but at the same time, you've got to think, okay, that was Newcastle. It's a different script against some of these really bad teams. So that's an option. The 3 of us have had some interest in their defenders. I think we talked a couple weeks ago about how United still aren't a very good defense. So just because they're playing bad teams doesn't mean that they're not going to concede. But I think there are a couple of distinct opportunities. Obviously, it seems like you guys are interested in Dallo, and I've gone that way. I've gone the Dorgu side of things. I think from like a 3-week punt perspective, and maybe even longer, obviously, those seem to be good options just because despite United being a bad defense, they still show up here second highest clean sheet odds at 42% this week against Wolves. And then if you think that they could get some attacking returns as well in there, some DEFCONs, what have you, it seems like a good opportunity. But yeah, where are you guys at on defenders, as well as like, do you think Cunha is a must going into those 3?
Yeah, I hopped on Dallo pretty quickly because I could do 1-for-1 with Anderson, who just had his 3-game run there with good fixtures. So I got him out and was able to switch over. I think just with their attacking threat that's available, and I did bring him up a few weeks ago because I was like, I wanted someone from them because their fixtures have been so good for so long, or looked like they were going to be so good for so long. So I'm excited that these guys kind of have shown out. I mean, Dallo has 4 attacking returns in the last 5 games. So to me, it just kind of makes sense at a 4-4 when I brought him in to have him. And my thing with not going Cunha, so I've decided I'm not going Cunha, is that I would have had to do anything meaningful with it. I would have to come down from Saka to get to him, and then I would have to take a hit to make that next transfer. And right now, I just don't want to take another hit. After just taking one, I don't think it's going to do me any good in the short term. So if I can go to someone that's going to get an attack or have opportunity in their lineup because of those fixtures, then that's what I did.
Right.
Yeah, I like it. I'm in a very similar boat. My main reservation against Dallo a couple weeks ago was that United weren't showing that they could clean consistently, and then also weren't getting enough involvement. So it's like, if you're not going to clean, if said players are at least involved in, the attack, that's fine, but they weren't doing either. And then it seems like in the last couple of weeks, they've had a formation change, which is really freeing up Dallo, making their team a little bit different. I don't know if this is just temporary because of the AFCON situation. and they're going to revert back, and then Dallas going to stop. But either way, it just kind of is right now, and I think it's adding more upside combined with the bad fixtures that they have, or sorry, good fixtures against bad teams. So yeah, I'm pretty interested in a United defender. We'll see which one. I think there's a kid whose name I honestly don't even know, who's played the last couple, and he's like 3.8. So if you wanted the ultimate budget play,
Haven, I don't know.
yeah, but I think he would probably get dropped when Maguire came back, and I have no clue when that would be. So just something interesting. Also similarly weary on Cunha. Like, I don't know. I watched the Villa game where he scored 2 weeks ago, and he was taking a lot of bad shots, which were really racking up his XG. And then he just scores a wonder goal. And then so I was like, all right, well, against Wolves, he should probably still get a lot of goals just because Wolves are so bad. But I wasn't that impressed this past weekend, but it was against Newcastle. So it's like I just haven't learned enough information. And I'm so fearful if I don't pick him up, I'll be punished heavily. But if I do pick him up, it'll just be a stupid move. So
for sure. I think, yeah. So obviously this weekend was the first time that we get to see this attack without Bruno and Bumo and Ahmad.
Mhm.
And not only that, but we see Mason Mount go off at halftime with an injury. So unclear on if he's going to be ready for this next game. I don't think so. I think that was what I heard. But I mean, it lends itself to this attack is getting worse, right? Just inevitably, if all your starters start to get injured, that's a problem. The flip side of that argument is there could not be better fixtures for a team over the next three. So I think it is a really interesting dilemma. And because of the detractors, I don't think Cunha is an auto slam dunk. You think back to his time at Wolves, he was on obviously a pretty poor team and was able to return and kind of be the guy. This is his opportunity to do so. He didn't do that against Newcastle, but it is also Newcastle. So it's hard to say. So I think that's an interesting one. For me, the reason going for the Dorgu play is that he's playing in the same position that Ahmad / Bumo. It's a little bit of a different lineup than they had previously, but kind of like the Ahmad role. So he's just playing attacking, and so kind of an out of position player at 4-1 is interesting. I think Dallo is more of the long-term play. The nice thing about their fixtures going forward is they have these three really good ones. Then they play City and Arsenal, which obviously suck. But then after that, it's Fulham, Tottenham, West Ham, Everton. So if you were able to bench a player like a Dallo for those couple weeks, then you're going to be set to go. The reason I'm going Dorgu is more so kind of from what you said earlier, Mac, on the perspective of like trying to chase rank a little bit. I'm in a position where I feel like I need to catch up quickly. And so I'm going for a player with a little bit more short-term upside. Obviously, as soon as the guys come back from AFCON, could be eligible to just be completely dropped out of the lineup. So that's my thought process, taking a little bit more of a swing. But I think if I was in either of your guys' shoes, I may be more inclined to go Dallo. I will say they both hauled this past weekend. Dorgu scored the goal and Dallo got the assist. If you watched the play, though, Dallo gets the assist. I don't understand why this counts, actually. He did a long throw. Voltemade clears it with a header, and then Dorgu hits it out of midair and scores it from there. So it doesn't feel like he should have gotten that, but to your point, Sharp, he has returned assists in the last two before that as well. So, or two of the last three before that. So he does obviously have some attacking threat.
So sorry I interrupted, but I will say I did see on Twitter someone posted his Dorgu's team because he plays FPL and he had himself benched. So I don't know what that says, but I don't think he had himself benched for his haul, which I just think is hilarious.
That is very funny. Yeah, I mean, I think from his perspective, like, again, the reason I'm going there is not necessarily to say like everybody should go there. I'm doing it because I think an out of position player who has these fixtures and is going to be attacking, I'm down to take the punt. But I mean, before these last two games where he played 90 minutes, he played 20 minutes or less for the three before that, for the four before that. So he's definitely not nailed in this lineup. And honestly, he could be benched for any of the next few. I just think they have so many injuries that he's bound to play. So anyway, but yes, so the United defenders there, Cunha is obviously seems like he's an option, but maybe is not a must. It is hard to say though, like if you guys, let's say we were smarter and you rolled some frees, who would you be going for outside of Cunha? I think that's maybe the reason why so many people are going there is that there's not too many options that are like a real like really jumping out. Going obviously DCL is one, but he's pretty cheap. Anybody could get him.
Yeah.
I'm more talking in the midfield. Do you guys have anybody that you feel like is a good shout?
So that was part of what I was going through this past weekend because in my brain I was going to take another hit only to take Saka down and do something with that money. And I was like, I've been losing rank the last 2 weeks. This would be aggressive, but it could be worth it. And this week, there was no one that I was like, wow, for game week 19, I really need. My biggest thought process was because I'm not going to pick reverts up. Florin's never going to be on my team. That's just not going to happen because I don't have that much faith in them. So he's not a target for me. And then the next person that seemed really interesting was Anthony Gordon. But I'm like, all right, well, I already have Bruno G. Like, do I really want to double up in the midfield with that? So for me, there's no one that I didn't look at and could be like, yeah, I could just wait till next week and be completely fine.
I mean, I think Gordon is a shout if you don't have Bruno G. And if you do have Bruno G and you have spare transfers, I could also see it being a shout. So, like, I don't want to disregard him just because we have Bruno G. But, yeah, I mean, the problem is, Luke, I think you summed it up well. Most of the picks that you want right now are really cheap. And if you're looking at form players, we have relatively similar teams. So the guys that we don't own collectively are like Cherky in the midfield and Semenyo and Gordon. And that's really it. Like other than that, there's not a lot of great names. Sade has gotten one return all season. Gravenberg is pretty expensive.
I don't think that's right. He's gotten returns the rest of the year.
Sade. I mean, okay, he has 8 against Newcastle and 11, 7 against Liverpool and 9, 6 against West Ham, 7 against Chelsea, and that's it. So very sporadic points with him is maybe a better way of saying it.
That's fair, but 6 goals and 2 assists over the course of the season. I do think he's of those guys. Like I obviously didn't go there, but he's definitely somebody who put his hand up. Could be an option.
I don't know.
Tottenham, Everton, Sunderland in the next 3.
Tottenham, Everton, Sunderland. I mean, yes, but are any of those like locked in fixtures for them? I don't know.
I feel like this comes up every week, Mac. I love you, but Tottenham is pretty bad. Like every time I see them, I definitely want to target them. And then Everton defensively as well, like is a solid team to target.
I didn't want to.
No hate on Spurs.
No, I didn't want to bring it up just as it didn't sound like I'm bitching. But since you opened the door, I mean, I watched the game this weekend and had no fun, absolutely no fun.
Yeah.
I was tweeting mid game to Sharp about how much fun I wasn't having, and then they promptly scored, and that was the only game. My bigger takeaway though was not that Spurs are like magically back. It was just that Crystal Palace looked really shit. They looked like dog water because we left them ample opportunities to score, and they had no finishing, and now they're not keeping cleans. And I'm like, maybe that's just a conversation we should have. We all know Tottenham aren't doing good right now. The Tottenham fan base certainly does, but I mean, I think the legs have well and truly fallen for Crystal Palace.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Like, actually, if you guys want to get on it, do any of you guys own like a Guehi or something? How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, Guehi. Yeah, no, honestly, that was as I was looking at my team this past week too. I'm like, I have 5 pretty solid defenders that I'm not unhappy with. And I was figuring out who I would get rid of for Gabriel and what kind of money I would need for that. And it was coming down to within the next few fixtures, like the guy I would want to get rid of is Guehi because my other ones are pretty solid. That's assuming that Timber is healthy and playing. That's the only caveat.
He's got Fulham in 19, but then it's Newcastle, Villa, Sunderland, Chelsea, Forest, Brighton, and then it's good again in 26 with Burnley and Wolves. And that might just be all the time they need to recover. So I think the stocks are falling for Guehi for me as well. I don't know how many of those they're realistically going to clean on. And then like I said, I watched the game and Crystal Palace looked tired. Not bad. They're not a bad team. They just looked like they're undermanned and undergunned. And I hope they sign big in the transfer window, but somehow I doubt it if they didn't sign in the summer.
I hear you guys on. I think you're definitely right. Of the likelihood of a clean sheet is just going down for that team, right? Everything that we've talked about for so long is finally coming to fruition. My counterpoint with Guehi though is that I feel like out of like the reason why Gabriel is such a priority transfer is not necessarily. I mean, it's really a combo of things, but the main thing is that he has really good goal threat, right? And I think there has been no player better at goal threat of defenders than Gahey this season. And so he's somebody who I've missed out on entirely. I don't think I've owned him at any point this year. But from that perspective is a really enticing player and someone who, if I had him in my team, I don't think I'd be tempted to get rid of. It doesn't show from an FPL perspective, but I think it was midweek last week he scored again from a header. So he's definitely just someone that they target from set pieces, and he has that threat to score that I think he's a valuable hold. But not to say you have to hold him or anything. I just think that's a worthy consideration. Like for me with a Richards, or if you had a Lacroix, I think both of what you guys said makes perfect sense. I just think his attacking threat is worth considering before you get rid of him.
He is, he's not maybe first on the chopping block on my defense, I will say, but I think from a strategy perspective, I think it's more of a question of, well, he's a good hold and might score the occasional goal. If you're chasing rank like you and me are, Luke, this is where I would be bold and say Crystal Palace look tired and they have not great fixtures. Let me try to get a differential, because I don't think the people who are going to hold him are going to get huge returns in this next stretch, and maybe I could get that by doubling up on an Everton defender or bringing in like a Man United guy instead. So I think you're right about it being a hold, but I think it's more of like, I did this a couple weeks ago when I shot up from 3 mil to 400K, where I said, this is a bad stretch for Arsenal defense. Let me just not have an Arsenal defender. And then every week when I attacked those good fixtures, I was like gaining, 500 ranks because I would have a defender who would clean and get DEFCONs, which is like 8 points. So yeah, he's not my top priority to get rid of. I certainly have bigger problems in the team, but I'm just saying
defensive transfers can be worthwhile. Yeah.
Can be worthwhile as long as you're taking calculated bets. Like, is it better if you look at this projected clean sheet odds? He's, how many is this? The next 6. So they're 10th, which is solidly average. So if you could get in like Everton guys or Chelsea guys who are 4th and 5th, Newcastle guys, City, Arsenal, all of those are viable defenses, I think, over Crystal Palace right now.
Yeah. I still have some like negative vibes on the Everton defense, but I do want to talk Newcastle.
Let's talk about that.
Go ahead.
Keep saying it. No, it's interesting. I want to hear your thoughts on that before we get to Newcastle, because you keep saying like you don't like Everton defense, but as discussed from the available defenders, the Everton guys are kind of up there. So I'm curious where your sort of dislike of them comes from, because for total points, Keane is 91. He didn't even start, I don't think, at the beginning of the season. So that's crazy. Now that's not true. He's been playing mostly 90s. And then Tarkowski's down in top 10 as well. So I don't know. I'm just interested.
No, we talked. So, okay. First of all, I want to say, I think it's funny that on this podcast, the Tark narrative is so roller coaster, because 2 weeks ago, you guys were like, Tark is the man. He's the guy. Last week, Mac, you were like, I got to get rid of Tarkowski. This guy fucking sucks. And now
I still think
we're back on the Tark train. But the reason I don't like
I've always loved Tarkowski. I just want to put that out there. Don't put that slander on me.
The reason, so I think Tark is a very fine pick just because he is the epitome of that like cream of the crop DEFCON guy, right? And you guys shut me up nice and quick a few weeks ago when you were like, what is he, like 3rd in points or something like that for defenders? Something ridiculously high. He's definitely top 10. My negativity on the Everton defense is just that I don't think they're a good defense. Like,
agreed.
In terms of keeping cleans, their XGC, they're 13th, I think, in the Prem. So something like that. They're pretty below average in terms of actual XGC. So when you talk about like doubling up on an Everton defense, I think that's probably too much. But I think going for one of those guys is fine. The other thing to consider with Keane is just that Branthwaite's coming back, and in theory will probably take that spot back. So I think I could be convinced to go at Tarko, but I actually don't think I would get anybody else from that defense.
It's all so team dependent, right? Here's the problem. I don't think Tarko, just to be clear, is a bad player. He's been great in me for the game, and I've owned him since game week 6, right? So I'm like his number 1 hater and his number 1 fan. My thinking on it is more of he is so goddamn expensive for an Everton defender, because I just don't feel like he should be priced that high because he plays on Everton. So I'm sort of agreeing with your point on like, Everton doesn't keep a lot of cleans. I think the reason they're good defenders is because they invite a lot of pressure and get a lot of DEFCONs. So then they occasionally clean, and you have like a 4-8 guy like Keane, he's 4-8 now, getting 8 points or 10 points,
right?
Plus potentially some bonus because they don't have a lot of attack with Dewsbury Hall out and then Die away at AFCON. So I agree. It's like maybe challenging to make an argument to have two of them, especially with Leeds in such good form and Villa in such good form, who they play in the next 5. But I mean, I just think there's also upside because they play Wolves, and if we don't think that he's going to clean or like an Arsenal are going to clean, then maybe there's more to it. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's a good discussion.
I think in the world of defensive transfers, obviously, like I've already cat out of the bag, and it sounds like we're all kind of looking at the United defense. But Mac is somebody who still hasn't, somebody that I was looking at, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts on the whole, is a doubling up on a Newcastle defender. And the reason I think it's a good conversation is because on paper, right? So this chart is a great example. They're the 3rd best defense, quote unquote, in the league, but they haven't kept a clean since October. And I sent you guys something before this of just some highlights of Lewis Hall in the United game. So he has a ton of attacking threat, and he was a must-have in FPL. I think that was last year when he wasn't injured, where he was just returning at a high rate from an attacking perspective. So I think it's a bet you can make. I obviously didn't do it because I just was like, boy, I already have one Newcastle defender and it's enough pain. I don't know if I want to go double again, but there's certainly an argument that could be made for it. And I do think that if I didn't already have a Newcastle defender, I may be tempted by a Hall just because of his attacking threat. And again, their next few: Burnley, Palace, Leeds, Wolves. So yeah, but I do think it's a pretty stark landscape out there, especially when we can talk Arsenal defense in a second, but sorry, I want to hear you guys' thoughts on Newcastle.
I think it's a great point. Like, why double up on the Everton if the Newcastle fixtures are better and I trust their defense more? Yeah, real tough landscape for them though. They're not keeping a lot of cleans. They're not getting a lot of returns. I would love to feel more confident on them. I think the case for is just purely that they play in the next 3 teams that are in the bottom 5.
Right. And that's exactly the thought process that is bringing us to a United defender, right? And it's the same 3 teams just in 4 weeks instead of 3.
And I think like all the teams are so template that we just got to play the points reclamation game. The upside, the downsides are not that low if you don't have certain guys, because there's not that many guys in the pool, and the upsides are higher at this point in time.
Right.
Sharp, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I'm confused. You've owned a Newcastle guy the past 10 game weeks. Why are you doing this? Why would you consider this?
Do you know incredibly frustrating for sure.
I don't cheer for an injury, but I was so grateful that Burn was not able to play, because that was like, oh, I can transfer him out without a guilty conscience. This is amazing.
For sure. Yeah, I think again though, I'm in a position where I'm trying to chase, and it's like I feel like I have to go a little off the beaten path with some options. And again, obviously I didn't go there, so I agree with you, Sharp. Like I was like, this has been enough pain. But like a team that, if you're the average person playing FPL and you're sorting by form and total points and saying, okay, who should I go for? Obviously Newcastle isn't going to pop up on that list. So trying to identify somebody who like isn't being talked about enough, but could be, I think is where my headspace needs to be. I think if I didn't see that Dorgu was playing so attacking and so advanced, I probably would have gone to somebody like that. Maybe a Dallo, but it's, again, the defensive landscape is tough. And I do want to talk about Arsenal as well. But yeah, I very much so hear your point, Sharp. Like it could be a lot of pain. I think ultimately what the thing is with Newcastle, like my perspective on why they've been conceding is that they have a solid defense. They're a well-coached team in that sense. They have a really strong midfield and solid defensive line that backs that up. It's really their keeping that has been letting in a lot of goals, right? Like they've been letting in a lot of low XG chances. They've obviously been starting Ramsdale for the last few weeks. Pope was pretty bad. So I think they've been struggling from that perspective. Maybe it's a team that's active in that sense in the January transfer window. I don't know. But yeah, I very much so hear you, Sharp. If they're not cleaning, what the fuck are we talking about?
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up right there. I mean, yeah, you know how I feel, but I'm biased. But I do want to talk about Arsenal, because that is something that I think is on all of our radars. I mean, that's a tough thing to look at when you talk offensive perspective, so I'll touch on the defense first. I think Gabriel coming back is the main priority, and who I think everyone should be targeting and going after. It's kind of crazy. They've had so many ups and downs and injuries, with Calafiori obviously going off in warm-ups this past week, and Timber not even traveling. That was surprising. So I think those guys were like your consistent mainstays. And now I'm looking at Gabriel. If he's back, like he has to be the one you have. And I think everyone else is just kind of like a option at that point. Like if you want them, sure. If they have a good run, sure, go after him. But outside of Gabriel, I don't know if there's going to be much reason to hold anyone, which is why Timber's on my bench this week and probably getting subbed out pretty soon.
Right.
If not, I think I said tonight, like or tomorrow after the deadline, so I don't take the hit. It could just be a Timber to Gabriel situation. But I will say I still have triple Arsenal because I think you still need Arsenal represented. Unfortunately, they have been that good as the top team in the league this year, and they have spread out assets, which can be a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah. I am curious to talk more about your specific situation when we get to transfer plans, because I think that could make sense for you. But I think if I wasn't able to bench that player this week, I'd be curious. I don't know if I would make that transfer. The only reason I say that is because Arteta said that Gabriel was able to sub in, but his minutes need to be managed from now on. Again, who knows what the fuck that guy's ever talking about. Could be a total lie. And they do have so many injuries that maybe he just does start 90s from now on. But obviously congested fixtures, midweeks, stuff like that. I ultimately sold Timber for obviously not an Arsenal defender. So I'm not on the triple Arsenal for the moment. It's the same thing as the United attack too. I want to hear your guys' perspective on, do you feel like all these injuries are enough to make you say it could be worth swerving Arsenal defense for a little while? Obviously, Mac, you talked about how that's something that rose you in the ranks for the last few weeks.
Not the Arsenal defense, no. I think that if Gabriel comes back, theoretically, that's like the missing piece, right? Like, hopefully that's just the problem solved, and then they regress to the mean, I suppose. They live up to their price again. So no, not for the Arsenal guys. I think that, I mean, honestly, they're playing Villa and Unai Emery owns Arsenal, but then Bournemouth haven't been that good. Liverpool haven't been that good. Forest, United. It's a hard run, but then it gets better. And if you know they're going to be owned by everybody, you might as well just capitalize on the price rises now, right? Because if they get good, then everyone's just going to buy back into them. Yeah.
I think from the Gabriel perspective, personally, I'm comfortable with, so we have 3 fixtures in the next week, right? I'm comfortable with foregoing him for maybe that little short period, but by the time 22 comes around, or even 21 maybe, but 22 comes around and we're in mid-January, I think it's a no-brainer for sure. Mm-hmm. And I could get burned by saying that. I didn't have the luxury of bringing in a player who I couldn't be sure was going to start.
Yeah. One thing I was curious about on just this defensive conversation is I was trying to pull up the data on the side and I couldn't find it. Is I feel like, based on no science, that headed goals from defenders have been down recently.
Because Gabriel's been injured.
Yeah, well, straight up. But like from Guehi, it's been down. Chalobah's gotten a couple. I guess they don't have to be headers, just defender goals. And I would love to graph by week,
yeah,
are they down? Because that's my vibe. And I feel like goals have just generally been up from midfield players versus like the 30 clean sheets that we were seeing. So it feels like the deadlock that has caused so many of these really high priced defenders is that they were scoring and getting DEFCONs, and it feels like it's breaking a little bit. So I guess just it seems like the meta is shifting, and I'm not sure
100%.
in what direction, and I have no data to prove that. Do you guys feel that as well?
100%. I feel like early in the season it was a little bit more of a static style of play. It felt like teams were having trouble breaking each other down, and were doing so more so from the set piece perspective. Obviously, that's the Arsenal state of mind, but it felt like that was permeating through the league. And now you have players like, examples being like Foden and Rodgers and players like that who are scoring
Cunha
more consistently from attacking positions. So I agree with you. I think, and then from an FPL perspective, that's caused a bit of a shift to be like, all right, we can invest more in attack now. We're seeing cleans are going down, defender attacking returns are down as well. Like I would agree based on, again, just vibes. But
yeah,
I love.
What are you gonna say, Sharp?
Sorry, I just love that the data boys went off vibes there. That was fun to see.
I mean, what we see every season, and this is only based on pre-DEFCON data, is that eventually the defenders get massively outstripped by the forwards, at least the top couple forwards and the midfielders, right? It's not proved the case to be the season, and I don't know if that means that DEFCONs have worked as planned and defenders will become more viable picks. But at some point, if we're not scoring goals, That's why everybody had 3 Arsenal defenders.
Right.
And if they're still keeping clean sheets, what does the price investment into their defense need to look like if they're not scoring that much?
Right.
And that sort of then extends across all the rest of the picks, like the Chalobahs of the world, the Guahis of the world. If they can keep putting in the headers and getting clean sheets and DEFCONs, that's awesome. Well, it's also sort of like that's always what you're looking for in defenders. But do we need a Timber and a Calafiori and a Gabriel in our back line if they're not all going to score every week?
Right.
And I'm talking about having multiples, not any.
Well, and I think obviously that the Arsenal conversation is always at what cost too, right? So transitioning to their attack a little bit, like you can only have 3 players. Obviously you and I are a little bit handcuffed, Mac, with having Raya in that sense, but I want to talk about Saka and Rice, as well as if there's any other attackers you guys want to touch on. I know Gyökeres is there. Don't care for him, but watch. So that was the one game. There was like 5 games going on at once, and the Arsenal Brighton game was the one that I wasn't able to watch. So I watched back the highlights again this morning. Saka is just so involved. And again, is that worth his price? Probably not, because he's not having like double returns as much as you need somebody who's 10 million to do that. But I just know as a non-owner that it's coming. He's going to have a double return in the next few weeks or something, just because he's the guy. That being said, Declan Rice is kind of like a better Sobo. I know I've been critical of him at other points in the year from an FPL perspective, but we saw this game, him go play right back in place of Timber. He was too shy of getting DEFCONs. He ultimately got an assist, so could have had a little bit more points, but just feels like the Sobo in the sense of like he's the glue guy. He takes some set pieces. He's able to play anywhere on the field. He's good, has a ton of routes to points. I feel like he is just a really good value pick. But that being said, I feel like Saka could genuinely put non-owners in the dirt in any given week. So I'm curious to hear where you guys are at on that.
Well, right now I actually have both of them, and I'm pretty happy with having both of them.
I think that's a great luxury.
Yeah, so it's nice to have. The thing with Saka is always the argument is how expensive he is. I do think though, like you're saying, it's just so hard if you have him to get rid of him, because right now, unless you are specifically investing that money in someone you really want, like maybe you can't get to Ekatike otherwise, maybe you can't get somewhere else otherwise. I get it, but otherwise I think I'm gonna hold. I say until I look at it again next week, because I know I've been kicking it around, but I think I'm gonna hold until like a Bruno gets back, or if Cole Palmer says I'm gonna go start putting points in again.
Yeah.
But Rice, if you can't afford Saka, Rice is like the same thing, 3 mil cheaper. So like I also just get going after him. If I'm looking at budget plays there, I'm going after him. And if maybe it's you have Raya on your team, so you take a Rice and then you take Gabriel, might be where you have to go with that.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I kind of agree that this is where I feel so hamstrung by having a Raya. I've had him all season, and he's, I think up there, top 3 scoring goalkeepers. But yeah, Pickford still is 76, so he's 1 point behind him. Raya's second with 77. And then Royce is first with 83. So it's not a huge difference. Sanchez for Chelsea has 70. But because I really feel like if Arsenal aren't cleaning as much, why have all that investment in Raya, who's actually the person who's least likely to get you points as a goalie? Then capitalize on your Gabriel and then have Rice. Because I think the thing is with Rice is if we look about midfielders, Rice has like the second most points. Rice is on the best team, and he's Mr. Consistent, right? He's just as likely to haul as a Morgan Rogers is for the same price, and he's on a better team, theoretically, right? So I think when you look at Rice in context of other similarly priced mids like Bruno G, Rice is just getting a way outsized amount of points for his price, and it almost feels like silly to not have him at a minimum. And then I keep getting on the same sort of train with Saka, like I'm going to get rid of him for this person, this person this week. And every time I look at him, I'm just kind of like, but do I want to do that? Because of like,
the haul's coming. It's coming.
Well, even if it's not coming, he got 3 points versus Everton. But then other than that, his floor is like 4 points.
Right. He does so much. Like that's the thing.
Bad.
Bonus, he cleans up on bonus.
It's like you said, he's just involved in everything. And versus Bruno G doesn't return, and then he's getting like 1-2 points, or same with the Rogers. So I don't know. It doesn't feel like he's justifying quite the price upside, but he's also not. He's Mr. Consistent for the floor, at least. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think my counterpoint on the Raya thing though is just like we've done enough on this argument in general, but I just on the point of the defense, I do think they're going to figure it out. Like we talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
Like, do you want Gabrielle? Do you think that they're going to figure it out? I think they're going to keep cleans. It's boring to say, but I think Arsenal are just the consistent defense, and it's like
we always talk about them, but I genuinely think the answer with them is just keep what you have, right? Like if you have a structure with Arsenal players, just keep them. Like you don't need to go sideways because everything is spread out that all of them are going to haul at some point.
Yeah, the only counter or the only player that you maybe move off of is Osaka to afford something else, but that's
But if only if you can make like Sharps really guarantee high upside moves, because in isolation, I don't think there's like one player, barring maybe Rice, who's better for like a 1-to-1 move.
Right. Yep. All right. Before we get into transfer plans, I meant to do this at the beginning. This is just a graph that shows you whose advice to follow and who's not to. So if you're here listening and you're like, oh God, these guys disagree on literally everything, who should I listen to? The guy in the yellow, that would be Sharp, i.e. Vibes FC. I should have put our Twitter handles on this, but yeah, it's been a tough run for yours truly. Also, this just shows the mini league of how far off we are. I'm 82 points behind Sharp, and I'm just looking at like I'm past the idea of getting back here. I just want to get to a serviceable, like I can't be a person who has a podcast about FPL and ends the season at 2 mil. That's just horrid.
I love that I'm getting some flowers here. I never get that from Luke, especially. He's usually getting all angry about it. So that was nice to hear. I'm going to revel in that moment for a little bit. But
all right, shut the fuck up. Let's move on.
I flew too close to the sun. I got close to Sharp, and then I've just been falling ever since. I sent out this optimistic tweet like, don't kill yourself, it gets better, and I've just arrowed every week since that. So never try to spread positivity on Twitter.
I think it's funny that like you guys are following the traditional like curve of an FPL rank, like start really high and then it does the whatever that's called, like an exponential.
Versus you were. Oh my god!
Like look at mine. It's so weird. Like how is it? It's just kind of stayed oddly static, and then it's going.
We have to go back and watch your cocky ass
the week by week
one reaction. Right. Like you must have been so up there.
You guys, you really should get Holland. He's excellent. Yeah, tough stuff. I went Wirtz, but he'll turn it around. Anyway, let's jump into transfer plans. I can start, or Sharp, do you want to go first?
Either one.
I think I'll go first just because I don't have really much to talk about. I'm pretty done. So I did again. I was supposed to go Wilson to Cunha. Fucked up. It is what it is. So I did KDH to Cunha, and it ended up being okay. My rationale for why that's fine is because my starting defender would have been Timber this week anyway, and because we don't have any certainty that he's going to start, I probably would have transferred him out one way or the other. So I was probably taking a hit anyway. So now I'm getting KDH out instead of Wilson. Anyway, getting Cunha in. He's my vice captain against Wolves. And then, obviously elected to go Dorgu from Timber. This leaves me like, what do I have in the bank? Like 1.2. So it gives me some flexibility later. It doesn't give me a direct route in terms of that amount of money to get to Gabrielle immediately outside of if I went O'Reilly straight to him, which could be an option later on. So this would be an excellent time for me to roll next week if I can try to do that, but I've been saying that for a while. I am pretty happy with this team in the long term. The only player that I really don't like looking at is Bruno G, but their fixtures, again, are just so good for the next 4 that it feels like a stupid sell. That being said, I've been a slave to fixtures before. So, Rodon being injured doesn't really affect me, just in the sense of he's a player that I'm never really going to play anyway for the most part. And then Richards, it sounds like, should be back sometime relatively soon, if not this weekend. And then Harry Wilson, like I was talking about it this week, texting with you guys about it. Like he plays Palace, Liverpool, and Chelsea, but then after that they go into a nice run of fixtures again. And he's a player he's kind of the guy at Fulham. And I mean, it's Fulham, so I think that's worth noting, but not somebody I'm like super upset to hold as a relatively cheap pick going forward. So yeah, that's where we're at. Newcastle are for sure going to concede, and I'll kill myself, but it's whatever.
I know each time we talk about it, I'm like, should I get more Newcastle? And then I'm like, no, fuck Newcastle.
No, yeah.
Absolutely
Well, so
not.
I had somebody in my DM, not my DMs, like commenting on my Twitter post last week, being like, "Start Chow. Like, what are you doing? Start Chow. They're a great defense." And I was like, "Brother, they have not kept it clean since October."
I saw
Like,
that. You gonna body bag that guy? I was like, oh.
No, I wasn't trying to body bag him. I was actually thinking about it. He put me into a tailspin because the last time somebody commented and was like, "Start Tiago," I didn't, and then he hauled. So, and ironically, the player I was starting over him was Chow. So, anyway, neither here nor
Fair
there.
enough.
But I've been burned by Newcastle too many times to be optimistic.
Yeah. No, I like what you did this week. I think your attack's gonna look really solid, which is cool. I do question: are you still looking at an early wild card as you plan this out?
Potentially. Like, I feel like the Dorgu move pushes me more in that direction because he's almost an auto transfer out. I don't know. I'm going to play it by ear. I'm kind of like, I'm kind of throwing planning by the wayside. It's done me no favors this year. So I'm kind of just like, I'm trying to point chase a little bit, like just be like, how do I get the players in that are going to score? To your point, Mac, of just being like, who's got the good fixtures and run with that. I need some short-term gains and then we'll figure out where to go from there. But yeah, Dorgu is almost like he's pretty much a banked transfer, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I just question too, if you do keep considering that, like, who are you really going to try to get to? Because to me, who sticks out is probably, I mean, you want Chelsea players starting in 21, I think, if not 20. But outside of them, are there
21.
maybe Villa starts a little turning around, but it doesn't feel like there's outside of that. It doesn't feel like you couldn't not get to those guys because you're going to want Morgan Rogers, and then you're going to, I don't know, Chalobah or pick your Chelsea, Reece James, someone like, I don't know.
Yeah, you know? No, I think those are super fair. And that's, again, around the time where I'm like, I could just wild card them, but that may be short-sighted. We'll get there. But from a Villa perspective, yeah, my plan with this was to try to get Morgan Rogers in game week 20. But obviously, I would like to roll next week. And I'm kind of like at that point for who it would be, you know, if Foden blanks again, maybe that's an option to get like a Morgan Rogers. If
you have money in the bank, don't you?
Yeah, so I could do. I mean, the only other player I could do directly to him would be Bruno G. Yeah. Again, though, Newcastle fixtures: Burnley, Crystal Palace, Leeds, Wolves. It's hard. We'll see. We'll see. Well, I'm very open, and I have 1.2 in the bank. We'll see where we go. I'm again just really not trying to plan it out too much.
Yeah, that's my bad. I asked you questions.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, we're past that point. No, yeah, I think the early wildcard thing is just going to be a feel it out moment. Because if it's like, if the AFCON guys start coming back and then I don't have a direct way to get to Gabrielle and I'm looking at taking like multiple hits to do something like that, I'll probably just rip it. But if there's an easy way, if I find like, you know, somebody gets injured and it makes my life easier or what have you, I'll stick to it. So we'll see what happens.
Never cheering for injury.
Of course not. Never. Except unless they're on your team. On to Sharp's team.
Crazy. Okay. So what I did this week was brought Dallo in there. I took Anderson out with Fulham's like run of fixtures kind of over there. Made a lot of sense for me to do. It was 1-for-1, so that was nice. Something that I want to do, and I guess I do want to ask this question. So, like, Luke, as you look at my defense with United's fixtures coming up, with Ruben being actually really solid in City's backline, Tarkowski's still DEFCONing and doing everything he does.
And they have nice fixtures for a while.
Call like Timber to Gabrielle or just keeping him at Timber. Like Guehi is definitely feels like my weakest link right now in the back line.
Yeah, and I think that's I feel like yes, but like true, but I think he's fine. So is your question should you do Timber to Gabrielle? And would that be for a hit?
I'm not gonna do that right now.
Okay.
That's not that is in the future plans. That's just not right now. But this is also why, like, yes, I think what you're getting at is yes, Guehi is the weaker, but he's not bad. Like he's still certainly serviceable. Like I definitely don't feel bad playing him against Fulham necessarily. So he's in there, and I can afford to bench a Timber, and I can get away with that for a little bit. But I think if I'm looking to have 4 solid starting guys, I just have to transfer him out. I guess is kind of my overall point when we were talking about Palace defense. But the other things that I'm looking at, I kind of wish I had Shirky now, but like, yeah, whatever. It's fine. Foden, I think, is still going to be good. They still have solid fixtures. This is where I have Saka and Rice, and I don't feel the need to get rid of them because...
No, I think that's a great spot.
The fixtures get better too, generally.
So this is where, though, I texted you guys, and with Barry, like my biggest regret right now is definitely him and what to do with him. So that's my top priority. And I could go to DCL right now before a hit. And I'm also like, but I'm probably not going to play him because I like everyone in my starting lineup and I like him for the
Doesn't seem worth it.
But he is playing Liverpool, so
I know, and we're gonna concede. There's no question about that. So I think the other thing that I want to fix, aside from like everything else, is going to be moving with the game and fixtures and form and whatnot. But the one thing I kind of want to fix is with having Verbruggen. I really got bit last week when he plays in Arsenal, like what to do with him. And so I need like that second goalkeeper. So I'd like to take Dubravka up to like a second serviceable one, whether it be Kelleher or someone that I could rotate. So I just need some money to do that at some point.
I'm telling you, go up to Pickford. You don't believe me, but the rotation is nasty if you go Pickford and Verbruggen.
Yeah, you can do West Ham, Burnley, Wolves, Bournemouth, Leeds, Everton, Fulham. Yeah, wow, that's a crazy rotation.
Yeah, that's fair.
And he's the second highest scoring goalkeeper.
But you have to put a lot of money into keepers, to be fair. Like that's a lot of money to be thrown in there.
But if you have like a otherwise
Verbruggen's only 4-4.
No, I know, but you'd be going Dubravka, who's 4-0, to Pickford, who's like 5-6.
But it's actually cheaper than Raya Dubravka.
Pickford's not 5-6. Unless he went up.
What is he?
I thought he was cheaper than that.
No, he is.
Maybe he's gone up.
He's 5'5", but
yeah,
Raya's 5'7".
Anyway, first of all, something that we have not talked about yet that I do think we need to is like what is actually your guys' read on DCL? I have no idea what to do.
He was really good at Everton a couple of years ago. He's had that dog in him, and then it disappeared for 2 years.
Right.
So
I just don't know. Like Sharp is basically asking us how priority is it to get a player like that in, and it's a player who's scoring every single week. Like, shouldn't we all be like, yeah, dude, absolutely get that player? Like, I'm so confused by him.
But we all absolutely agree that I wouldn't start him either.
Yeah.
See, but I don't know though, because like, I mean, you could start him over Gahey. You guys are talking about how you don't trust Palace's defense. Like, you could definitely make that argument.
I don't know. I think this is one of those awful times where I have to say it's team dependent. Like, if you need to start another striker, or you just are completely out of bench options, then it's like, yes, you should move for him, right? But Sharp just doesn't. Is
sure.
Like his fixtures aren't that good in the next 3 is unfortunately the thing. He plays Liverpool, United, Newcastle, then Fulham, Everton, Arsenal.
This is what we've said this for the past 5 weeks.
Right.
No,
that's what I meant.
I understand that. And like, it's not to say he won't continue to score, but are you ever going to, like, if you buy him, are you going to start him over Ekitike? Probably not.
No, that's
you going to start him over Guehi this week? Probably not. Like,
but would you be priced out of going there if he rises?
What's if
he's might.
Yeah,
he's 5'8".
Yeah, I'd be priced out because I have 0.1.
Well, then you should probably get him, but I don't know.
That's probably what I'm going to do tomorrow. Let's be honest.
I honestly think that makes sense. Obviously, I don't know how you're setting this team up the following week, but if you look at your team, how you'd be setting it up next week.
Why?
What'd you say?
It's like neither do I.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're like, oh, I'm gonna need to play one of these guys on your bench right now next week, then it actually may be worth the transfer as soon as the deadline passes.
That's fair.
As long as he doesn't rise tonight. But the only other thing I was gonna say was I think you should start Timber over one of your guys. Probably, I don't know, Gahey maybe, but just in case he does start.
I don't know if I agree with that.
He wasn't practicing today either.
Yeah, so then so he doesn't play. Boom, then Gahey comes off of your bench. Like, what's the risk?
I hate doing that. I will always put the injured guys on my bench. I don't want to get fucked like I did with Barry and him come in and get a point, or like you did 3 times early this season.
Shots fired.
Did that happen? I don't think that happened.
It happened at least once because we had an argument about it on the pod. I remember.
I feel like I started a player who just ended up like Saliba, like surprise missed out or whatever, right? Like, wasn't it like players who were supposed to start and just didn't? I don't think it was like, actually, I remember it benefiting me once. I put in Murillo or something.
You're making
no, I'm straight up. It was like game week 3. I remember this. I put in like Murillo, and then I got KDH off the bench, and you were like, "You lucky ass," and I was like, "No, I knew Murillo was either going to play 90 or 0." Anyway,
that doesn't necessarily benefit you because you would have just started KDH. So like all you did was take a risk.
No, but like in this instance, right? My argument is that if let's say Timber was going to play, would you play him over Gahey? That's
I
the
guess-
question. If the answer is no, then what are we talking about?
Right. I mean, probably, but I don't know because Villa's
Okay.
still been solid. Like,
Yeah.
it's so I guess to that point, if I was like 100% hands down, no doubt, like confident he's going to score 2 to 4 more points than Gahey, then like sure, maybe you can have him in there. But like, I certainly don't feel that way.
For sure.
All right, now that we've beat that dead horse,
It's my turn.
Hit it.
All right. I am between many things this week. Many possibilities in my future.
how many drafts are we about to see?
No drafts, but so bus team. My real big issue is I don't have a bench, right? Like I dead ended with Mr. Mark, and I immediately.
I thought we finally learned how to pronounce it.
We did, and in the moment I completely forgot it. So I took the coward's way out and said his first name. But yeah, then I immediately had 2 injuries, and so now I'm kind of left with like, do I play Timber because I'm not sure if he's going to start, or Anderson versus Crystal Palace, which I'm not hugely into. And then I have 1 transfer, right? So I'm of 2 minds. There's 2 possible paths before me. The first option is to like absolutely points chase and just go for what I think will get me the most upside this week, or option 2 is to set myself up better for the future based on the bounds of my team. And what I mean by that is I think that one very easy transfer to make this week is Anderson for Dallo. That lets me play Dallo this week instead of Anderson for Crystal Palace, and I don't have to worry about the Timber injury, right? And that just solves my benching headache. But my biggest fear is same team, different player, Cunha versus Wolves. And I have fears that, not moving on the Cunha train right before his awesome run, particularly in one of probably the best game of this next awesome run of 3, is dangerous. The only problem is I have 1 transfer, so any Cunha move I wanted to make, barring just getting rid of Saka or Foden, is going to have to be for a hit.
Wait, sorry, what do you have in the bank?
I have 0 in the bank, 1 transfer. So, I could take a hit, but I would have to be really specific about what I'm taking a hit for, I think, or I could just do the really easy play, like I said, as a reminder, just Anderson for Dallo. Gives me a guy I'm comfortable holding for this next run, and then I can, move next week. Or I could just roll. We could say that, this is a fine enough team for the week.
I don't know why you wouldn't do Dallo, honestly. And obviously I'm a little biased because that's where I went with a similar, I guess you could say, conundrum or like debate. But Dallo, again, he's returned in 4 of the last 5 games. He is pretty consistent points and he has great fixtures. And we just saw him, at least I know, you just know he's involved in the attack.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're worried about not covering off a United attacker in these next 3 fixtures, we're doing that technically with the defender, which is kind of dope.
Yeah,
And
I agree with that one.
Cunha, I'm just not convinced by him at all. So I wouldn't be excited to go off of someone like Saka or Foden to get to him.
And that's kind of my thinking, because like Foden's also playing Sunderland and Saka's also playing Villa. So Villa's no gimme for sure. But Foden is... See, what I really should have been doing was paying more attention, because if I was watching the prices better and I just didn't, and this is my fault, I could have gone Foden and Saka out for Rice and Cunha, but I didn't watch that close enough. And whatever, I'm not too upset about it. Like, I'm not that convinced on Cunha either. So it's Wolves, and Wolves are so bad. And if we're talking about massive amounts of upside or rank loss because I didn't bring in Cunha, I'm nervous.
The only thing that would lend itself to going Cunha is I don't like that you're starting Rodgers versus Arsenal this week.
Yeah, but I only brought in Rodgers versus Arsenal because last week it worked for exact money to bring in Ekatike versus Wolves and Rodgers. And I know that he got 1 point versus Chelsea and 1 point versus Arsenal. But then I'm thinking that I'll have him for the next run pre-prices. So
no, like I'm with having him. I just don't. I think it could be worth the hit to start Cunha over him. Is my point. Not to transfer him out necessarily, to transfer somebody else out and then play him.
No, that's a fair point. If I pick my team, that's not the right thing at all. So
it'd
Rodgers
probably be KDH to no, not Rodgers out. I'm saying like transfer Cunha in for somebody else. Yeah.
So Cunha, if I plug him in for KDH, is 3 mil short. So it's taken
Oh, so maybe just for
someone
Saka.
big
Yeah, the
down
Saka
for
one's
Saka.
tough.
And like, I don't know. I'm at the point where I don't really want to get rid of Saka. Like I don't think that bringing in Cunha, and like I said, I can't afford Rice. Rice is about the only player who would make me consider this move. Like if I had that, sure, right, that seems easy. But because I don't, I'm not sure that getting rid of Saka and Cunha and some lower tier players better, And that's kind of where I'm like, I could really attack this fixture with going Cunha, or I could just say having Dallo fixes a defensive issue that I have, maybe Gabriel next week, call it a day.
I'm trying to think, is there any way that you could do like a defender down? I mean, okay, would you consider selling Timber? Obviously, this is kind of the headspace that I'm in.
Yeah, I would absolutely consider it. The problem is like, so I sell him.
Say you go Dallo or whatever, whoever. I don't know.
Sure. And then
you have 2 mil to upgrade.
Like Bruno.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. I see and really what this is the Saka dilemma. This is like, if you keep your money invested in Saka, then these are the options that you have to give up. So
right.
Yeah, I think just going Anderson to Dallo is fine. What was the one that you said us earlier that involved Cherky? Because I liked that one.
That might have been.
I think it was like KDH to Cherky and somebody else down.
Oh, I think it was Saka to Rice, wasn't it?
Is that right?
Let me pull that back up.
Because I did like that one for it. Like Cherky is very involved. You don't already have triple city. Obviously, KDH is just rotting on your bench. And it allows you to not have to start Rodgers this week.
Yeah, so that one was Rice and then Cherky.
And that, I suppose that also probably gives you the money to be able to do Cunha too. So we were talking Cherky or Cunha either way.
Yeah, and like.
Oh no, it doesn't. It's your point.
It doesn't because I'm priced out.
Right,
so
right.
But that could be Cunha next week if I wanted.
I feel like if you don't get Cunha in this week,
it's kind of like why.
Yeah, I think you've passed the boat. And I guess you technically haven't, but you kind of have.
I mean, Wolves, Leeds, Burnley. He's the main guy. I feel like it's way more likely that they do score. If we looked at that goal projection chart that we have, they're supposed to get the most goals this game week. Wolves are just abysmal.
And Burnley's pretty bad too. Those are really the two, because honestly, Leeds is fine. Like they're okay.
And I think the bigger question is like, how do I gain rank? And that's the question I have to ask myself. I'm not trying to ask this question in terms of what gets me the most this week. It's like, what can I do? What's holding me back to my current team, and within the context of my team, like what's going to help me the most? Because Sharp's team is just so good that him chasing like Acuna makes sense because it's very within the meta. But I'm really held back by Anderson's going to become borderline unplayable for the next couple of games, right? And I just think that as much as I really want Cunha, I think it might be better to just fix my team, like Cunha out this week. Maybe Gabriel comes in, and then maybe I drop out Guehi for like a Chelsea defender in a couple weeks. Or I think I just got to get some more bench guys. So I'm probably leaning more towards the Dallo transfer, just because then I can like take something off my mind and focus elsewhere next week. And I'm targeting bad fixtures and hopefully gaining rank. So it's tricky. I'm not 100% sure, and this is why I sat on this one for a while.
No, this is tricky for sure, because again, I'm totally fine with that option. My only concern is really just like when you're talking about upside is the Rodgers versus Arsenal. Mm-hmm. So that's tough.
It sounds like Mac's gonna go Dallo, and then we're gonna laugh because you're gonna be the only one with Cunha when he doesn't score.
Do you both have Cunha?
That's actually true. Yeah. I already got Cunha, so you should avoid him for sure. Yeah. And the last time I got Cunha, it turned into poopy as well. He got injured right away. So
yeah, I mean,
literally broke him. The same thing.
So actually, no, Mac, that's exactly right. Sharp, who'd you get again? You got Dallo? Yeah, go Dallo, big time.
The problem is with
Mac. Listen to him. He's learned. He gets it.
I want Cunha and I want Dallo, and it's just like you said, Luke. It's the Saka debate. Having Saka makes it much harder to get it. I mean, I could just sack Bruno G, who I didn't discuss much, but it's just like his fixtures are so damn good too. Like
Burnley it's either Burnley or Wolves are the best fixture on the calendar.
Yeah,
so it feels rough to be selling a player
so,
that could
I don't
return
know.
against those guys.
I don't think that I'm convinced enough by Cunha to think I'm just going to do the Dallo. And I think that just might be it. I just don't think taking a hit this week is worth it, given my specific team structure and what I'd have to sacrifice.
Wait, so what if you did Timber to Dallo and Dewsbury Hall to Cherky? Does that work?
It does.
I don't hate that.
But then how am I going to get back into Gabriel in a couple weeks?
Fair.
Is the other problem. And with the Gabriel price rise, a part of me did wonder if
yeah, I think he's still supposed to rise tonight. Let me double check, but
if we think that there's a Gabriel, if he doesn't rise tonight, I could almost do this, like just lock in this move next week.
Yeah,
and that could be awesome. Like next week, as in tomorrow after the deadline.
Yeah.
But if he is gonna rise, I'm like, maybe I should just get ahead of it. But I definitely want to play Dallas versus Wolves, right? So
hey,
doesn't
my
feel
boy
like a priority.
Dorview's gonna rise. That's sick. It doesn't look like you. What I've realized with this is that if a player's close, there's still a good chance they could rise. But in theory, it says he's not going to rise tonight. He's going to rise tomorrow. So you might be able to just chance that one. And I agree. I think that's a great move to just book as soon as the deadline passes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that this week it just doesn't seem like there's enough easy moves for me to really force a hit.
No, this also works for me because this would give me the flip side of what Sharp said is if you guys don't own Cunha and I do, and he pops off, then that could be my ticket. So I'm for it.
I think solving the Anderson problem is going to help me too in the long run because having him is just going to fuck me up.
Can I remove Sharp? Oh, I can mute him. Nice. Remove from stage. Perfect. Perfect. I don't want him a chance for rebuttal. Oh, let's see if Sharp can.
Oh, all right. I was clicking my own stage. Thank you very much.
Was that Mac? Were you keeping him out? Was that?
Yeah, I was. Unintentionally, though.
I don't remember what I was going to say now. I just know that for some reason you still have optimism, which is crazy. I don't think you understand that whatever you do.
I'm literally a fucking right now, and I still have optimism. What are we talking about?
I mean, to be fair.
Yeah.
This broke guy calls another broke guy.
Yeah, exactly. This is a couple of winos talking shit to each other. All right. No, yeah, I your situation is a little bit trickier than I think either of Sharps and I is. So I don't know, it didn't work out. But I think that's a fine move to just go Dallo. We talked about Cunha. We all agree Cunha is not necessarily a must. He's a good option and he has fantastic fixtures, but he's not necessarily a must. Just on the point of teams with good fixtures with Newcastle, can we just briefly talk about how Voltamade is such a fucking troll? He comes on and plays 60 minutes every week, and he got 13 points again this week. He was on the team of the week. He's so frustrating. I don't think you can go there, but fuck, you have 60 minutes versus Burnley. Maybe you can. It's crazy.
I refuse to go back there. I made my transfer. I'm lying in it, and he can just rot wherever. Because I'm not going to go away from Ekatike, and I'm not going to take Saka down for him. So
Ekatike does feel like a trap. I'm regretting going there, but it'll be good to fund moves later, I suppose.
I don't think he's a trap.
It's not like an assist was bad last week.
No, yeah. He was fine. He got 0.63 XGI as well. It's he's a good player. It's just a question of I do think we're going to get into interesting territory when you get into 21 because he plays Arsenal and then he has Burnley immediately following after. So easy transfer out for Arsenal, you would think, but is it worth just benching him and keeping him for one more? Mm-hmm. That'll be an interesting thing at that point.
Well, it'll depend on if we bring anyone in, which it doesn't really sound like we're going to.
There's no way you can bring in another striker, right?
But also injuries just in and of themselves. Are we going to feel the same way about Ekatike when Gakpo gets back or when Salah's back from AFCON if he actually gets to play?
I don't know. I ffeel like we're playing the Ekatikes banked on minutes, and that's why we like him, right?
Right.
So
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think he's going to suddenly start getting rotated because he is your only striker. So this is a long way of saying I'm agreeing with you, I suppose.
Yeah. Fair.
All right.
Glad we had that talk.
Invigorating stuff. Here.
Any time that we're having like a disagreement on this pod, we should just flash this really quick, and that can just be the trump card, and then we come back.
I mean, I'm all for that.
I know more than you.
Yeah, but like again, we talked about this before we came on. This is like it makes no sense that this is how I react to this, but I'm like, oh, this is digestible. Okay, like Mac, you're only 40 points off. That's not that crazy. Couple of big weeks. Like you have a couple of big weeks and Sharp has a couple of bad weeks. Boom, you're back. You know.
I know. I mean, I was 400K 2-ish weeks ago. I've just been plummeting because I didn't move on the Wilson thing, and that's just punished me. But I'm just trying to think about the next wave. How can I get those players before they become that?
Dude, the price thing that you were talking about is so real. Missing out on players over this period, especially, I think when people are just on their phones more because it's the holidays. Like missing out on those transfers actually fucks you so hard. You have to really be on it.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad I got the reminder early. I'm locked now.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I think that's good for this week. Good luck to everybody in Game Week 19, except for you two fuckers. And we will catch you guys next time for another short week after this midweek set of fixtures. Good luck, everybody. Happy holidays.
See ya.